So at the moment, I've sat in the Anderson Shelter Arbour seat that I created through the summer, really. And I just thought I'd go through some of the plantings that I actually did. Because as we know, this is the secret garden area. And the problem with it is it has a lot of shade from this tree and also the hedge that sits there. And I'm adding to that. I'm loading that particular aspect by planting further trees, which are going to create further shade. So with that in mind, we have to plant carefully what we do. Now, bear in mind when you've got a shady area that it's not, unless it's full shade, which basically means you're in the middle of a wood and it's dark and it rarely gets any sunshine, then most plants, or a lot of plants, can take semi-shade. And that's what I've got here. I haven't got a full shady area. I've got semi-shade. Even in my what I call a shaded garden, it's still semi-shade. So I get lots of sun that comes and goes. But still, you need to choose wisely the plants that you're going to put into semi-shade. So I thought I'd just go through one or two of them that I've got in here at the moment. Obviously, ferns is one of the best things to go into semi-shade and shade alike. And they do really well in those types of conditions, and especially down at the secret garden. Now, a little design trick I've used here, as you can see, I bought this little feature, these fern type features here. I bought those off the internet last year, and they're lovely. And that metalwork below it that they're actually attached into, that there, is actually called a copper, and it turned the other way. It used to have a fire underneath it in a shed, and in days gone by, people would warm that up and wash their clothes in that, but I've turned it up and I've reused it. So what I've done is I've tied that feature into this fern, and it looks quite nice. But anyway, that's not what I'm here to talk about. So I've gone for things that will take shade and semi-shade. And remember, as you can see right now, the sun's coming through there. Now that edge is a bit messy at the moment because we're trying to level it out. We've allowed it to grow a little bit more than I should have done, really. But it will still get plenty of sunshine through here. So with that in mind, you've got to plant for that. So we've got some fern going on there. The ivy going on back there. It's Hedera Helix, and it's one called Ibernica. That's it, Ibernica. So it's quite a vigorous and fast-growing ivy, and a lot of people are not keen on ivies, but believe me, they have the places, and there is some good ivies out there now, some good cultivars that's definitely worth having. So that's a good one to put up against there, because as you know, I've now put a fence up here to make the secret garden a little bit more secret, a little bit quicker. So I get a little bit more privacy when I'm sat in there. So what else can I show you that would do really, really well? The grass. So grasses. Now then, Anamanthia lessoniana, the old Stipa arundinacea, which is the pheasant tail grass. This is in sort of like different phases. It's got some dead and dying in there, as you can see from the straw colour, but that's not a problem for it. It will outgrow that next year, and it'll do really well. It will grow in shade. The deepest of shades may prove a bit of a problem for it, but I think it would take it to a degree. But sort of if you've got like, for example, if you've got like, I don't know, a couple of hours of sunshine coming through, that would be more than enough for it, and it would take those sort of conditions. And as we can see, the sunlight keeps changing here. It's blinding me at the moment. It's coming through the clouds. But anyway, that would take shade, so it's really, really good for that. Now, going back across to the other bed, we've got a Nandina domestica, and that would prefer more shade than sun, but it would require a bit of sun, really. For me, anyway, it would require a bit of sun to get those colours going. And I've got two in the garden, and this one was in more of a sunny area than the other one that's not doing as well and has not got as good a colour. So it requires a modicum of sunshine coming through, and that will get that. Now, that ain't going to grow no bigger than 3 foot, I very much doubt. I don't know which variety this is, because I took it from an house I was working on at a time, and it was about to be destroyed and thrown away, so I rescued it. So that's Nandina domestica. It's commonly called the heavenly bamboo. It's a lovely little shrub to actually get that one. So that'll do well. Now, this is a bit of a stunner. This one's called Viburnum cinnamomum folium, and it's a fantastic shrub. evergreen that'll reach about 7 to 8 foot. If you know the viburnum called David Eye, this is kind of like that. Similar leaf structures, but it looks like it's on steroids once it gets going. Now remember, this garden, all the plants I'm showing you in this garden are all new in, and most of the borders are new. So I'm having to put smaller plants in to save on cost. Where I can afford to buy bigger plants, I do. Okay, so we go back to this euphorbia, whistleberry garnet. Man, that's going to be allowed to grow all the way through where you see soil. I'm going to allow it to do its thing in there. And I'm not going to worry too much about it here because I can control it. Now, here we got Erebotria japonica. Now, this, strictly speaking, prefers a warm condition. And here, it does actually get that, and it gets a bit of sun, so it's going to do well there. It's got bigger leaves, so anything that has bigger leaves naturally takes more sunlight, so it really does help it. And that'll be fine. That'll be absolutely fine. It'll never get very big for me here. It was kept in a pot for many years. I put it in here this year. All the leaves fell off. Then we got that hot summer. I watered it like it was going out of fashion, and here it comes. It's come back again, so it's brilliant. In fact, it's even getting these new leaves as well, as you can see, so it's doing all right. Now, another grass, this one here, Calamagrostis brachytricha, will take shade. It will not be bothered about this. This is its latter phase, and these seed heads are wonderful. In fact, if you're a flower arranger, consider this one because it goes well in flower arrangements, I'm told. I'm not a flower arranger, but I'm told it does. Now, it's got a little bit of green leaf down there, but the problems with them were they were kept in pots. They're not happy in pots, this particular type, but it has done well. And it will come back into green leaf as we get through autumn, winter, and into spring. It'll come back. Now, it's in a protected area here, so it'll do really well over time. Now, this is an Acer. All Acers do well in shade. And it's an Acer palmatum type, this one. It's very small, and it'll never get very big. And it's called Inaba Shida. And it's a purple coloured one, as a lot of them are. It's dropped its leaves already because I've moved it, transplanted it. What am I going to... I'm not sure too much what I'm going to do with the rest of this area. But I'm thinking that I might allow the euphorbia to make its way up here. I think there's some daffodils in here. I'm not 100% sure because I've moved it that many times and changed it around that many times that I've either dug them up or they've moved themselves around themselves, as they have a tendency to do. Okay, let's move on to this. This is Hedera erecta, and not a lot of people know about this one. This is although these are single little stems at the moment, they will make about a 2.5 to 3 foot shrub. And they have all this upright growth, as erecta suggests. Boring to a lot of people, but it will take a lot of shade. And I really like this one, if you can get it going. I've got 2 little bits there. They've been in pots, and now I've moved them on. So they'll do all right. An enemy, look. Got an enemy. So we've still got some late flowers going on here. See if we can bring that into focus. Look at that. Doesn't that look beautiful? It does look beautiful. I'm not into blousy flowers, but I don't consider an enemy's blousy. I consider them really nice as that. These are self-sets. They're all over the garden, to be honest, but they do really well. Now, as I've said, this is the secret garden, but we're going for plants that will do well in a semi-shaded position or a shaded position, so they'll do really well. There's another good example of Anamanthea lesoniana, the Stipa arundinacea. And that's doing really well. It really likes it. Obviously, things like the Hajj geraniums do well. This particular one's Johnson's Blue. I've been splitting it, moving it around, and it's okay. At the entrance of this, I've got this, a Sorbus Autumn Spire. Not 100% convinced it's in the right place at the moment. The colouring is correct. I feel it needs a lot of feed in there, and we will rectify that as we go through winter. Now this is a stunning plant, this. It's called Pavoskia, the Russian sage. Very apt at the moment. But it's beautiful, but it does prefer a lot of sun. So remember, although this is a shady area, it still gets the sun coming heavily into this section. So sections of your garden that are shade could be sat right next door to a section that gets full sunshine once the year kicks in, as that one does. Now I've got more grasses because this type of grass See if we can focus in on one of the seed heads. Now, some of these grasses, I admit, they do look pretty boring at times, as does this one. It's flowering now because it's called Cecillaria autumnalis, and it has this. I actually prefer Nitida, but I'm giving this a go this year. We'll see how it goes. I've had it sat in the pot for a year, decided I will put it in now. And there it is. So that's looking really good. Again, pheasant tail grasses, split them. They're easy to split. From that clump there, I could get, well, to be quite honest with you, I could get 50 plants out of that because I know what I'm doing. But I suggest if you're new to it, split it 3 times, a plant that size. But they're very forgiving. You don't usually do a lot of damage to them. Next to it is another hydrangea. Now that's hydrangea petiolaris, the climbing hydrangea, and I intend it to grow up the pillbox that I'm calling this thing here, and that'll do really well. We've got a little sorbus here called Kashmiriana. Now, we're not 100%, me and a friend, not 100% convinced that is Kashmiriana. We think it might be a different type because there are several different types of sorbus, some of them shrubbing. This is shrubbing. It does have the right berry for Kashmiriana, but it's never really got very big. But we'll see. Time will tell with that one. So we got foxgloves. Leave them there. Foxgloves grow all over this garden, and I'll leave them alone and let them do the thing. So we're coming into a bit more of a shady area now, so we need to remember that. But although it's shady, this holly tree, and it's a variegated form, and we're not sure what, because it used to be about 15 foot tall, and I had to clip it down because it just wasn't doing it for me. It was just in too much competition with this, so we cut it down, and then what that's done is it's allowed the light to come through, and it's allowed this Symphotrichum to come in here, which is Calliope, so it's on the edge of sunlight. So as I just said, you know, you can have a very shady area sat right next to a very sunny area, and that's what happens. These things happen. It's a bit like the rain. When the rain comes through, you'll sometimes walk down the path and find that half the path's wet and half of it's dry. Well, there has to be that point where that changeover occurs, and this is it. This is where that changeover from quite dense shade comes into bright sunshine. Another viburnum, and I really like this. Ever since I've been growing viburnums, which is probably 25, 30 years now, this has always been one of my favourites, and it's called Eve Price. It produces a little flower. It is flowering at the correct time at the minute, because various ones flower at different times of the year. It's new in. I did spend a bit of money on this. It was in a different part of the garden for the last 6 months, and this is where it's finally ended up, and that is to create that gap, or to fill that gap in for the secret garden, and that'll look really good eventually. And it's evergreen, so that's a good advantage. Now then. Grasses again. Haconocloa macra. That's all this is. A boring Haconocloa macra, but they're not boring. They're beautiful. Once these get into clumps, they will be about 1.5 feet, 2 foot, maybe 3, depending where you've got it. These do very, very well in shaded conditions. They really prefer the edge of woodlands. They prefer a bit of sunshine, but remember what I keep saying, it's getting flashes of sun through the day, so it's getting enough sun, or it will get enough sun, to actually do what I want it to do, which is fill that whole area in. Now, in between these, I have planted some daffodils, because the daffodils were lifted at the beginning of last year and left on the surface right up to a week ago, and they're absolutely fine. They were starting to root out. In fact, they were just here in this area here. I just left them sat there for the whole year. It's done them no damage whatsoever. They're fine. Now I've put this little dolly tub here, and that's a dustbin lid on top of it. And this is what I do all around the garden. I've got several of these around the garden. And I do this for the birds because they like it. They come and bath in that. They drink water out of that. And it's really good for them in general. So I have that there for that very reason. So moving down, we move to this. Another viburnum that I've shown. So this does really well in a shaded position. It'll also do well in a sunny position. It does well in both, really. A lot of viburnums are really good for awkward positions. In my opinion, they are. Other people might disagree with me, but I've been growing these a long time, and they'll do well. Again, remember, although that's in shade now, or would be in shade, what's going to happen is if we just pan the camera up, you'll see it has this gap. So in the summer, the sun will be right up there in the sky, and it will be shining its stuff down here. So this side actually becomes a very sunny site. So although it takes shade, it also shady plants rather. Although I've got shady plants in here, those shady plants will tolerate sun, and they'll be absolutely fine. And that's what you've got to bear in mind when you're creating an area. You've got to make it work for the conditions you've got. A lot of people don't. They kind of look at a plant, they get you get newcomers to gardening who like to go things like, you know, let's say hydrangeas in general, which would actually, funnily enough, I'm using the wrong example there. Dahlias is what I meant to say. They'll go for dahlias and try and put a load of dahlias in here, and they just look absolutely atrocious, and you know, they're not nice at all. Dahlias need keeping in flower borders. They don't want putting into areas like this. This is a lovely structural section, made all the better for me putting that fence in. And with that in mind, I would never ever put things like dahlias in there. It'll look absolutely terrible. Whereas the daffodils, the narcissus, will look absolutely fantastic once they come up, because everything else is going to be looking a bit shoddy. Now, everything in this area, including this Fargesia, this is a Fargesia knitted called Winter Black. It has been in here. This is its second season. It'll be coming into its third season. Now, you can see the erect culms there. They will be the big growers for next year. It takes a couple of seasons. I've always said to people, always when you put a plant in, first year it will sit, second year it'll get its root system going a little bit and it'll get some top growth going, but in the third year it starts romping away and you're away. And that's where that's going to be at. Third year, next year, it's going to be romping away. So again, hardy geraniums. This one here, again, is Johnson's Blue. Only because I had lots of Johnson's Blue when I moved here and I was not going to waste it, so I split it into several plants, and I've got a lot of plants around, and it can be a bit of a nightmare for some people because it gets to be a big geranium. It does, it really gets to be a big geranium, but it produces this lovely blue flower, and it's kind of a one-hit wonder. But if you trim it back early enough, once the flowers have gone over, I can almost guarantee you're going to get some more blue flowers. Not as many, a bit more sparse, but you'll still get them back. So I think I've mainly there's a yew here. This is what they call an English yew. So this is Taxus baccata, Davidite. It's a very fast-growing yew. And I put it here for that gap. So you can see the gap there. So again, it would take a darker area, and it also takes sun, and it's going to get both. So don't forget these. This position. This is the secret garden. It's going to have both types of conditions. So that's the types of plants I've put in, and for now I think it's more than enough. The only thing I will add to this are more ferns, because I absolutely love ferns, and we've got some really beautiful native ferns, and I'm going to get a few more. In fact, I may restrict it to that one cultivar, Robusta. I probably might, you know, it's a Dryopteris, I might stick it to just that. And I might introduce some more along this side here just to get it going. So in time, this is going to look a very, very green corridor. It's going to look beautiful. It's looking cracking now. I love it. So there you go. So that's just plantings that I've put in this area. Remembering that a lot of it is being affected by this tree here. We still don't know what that tree is. I still think it's a Western hemlock. Other people disagree, but nobody's come back to me with a definitive answer. So I'm sticking with that. Oh, forget about this one. It's a berberis. No, it's not. It's a Linicera. Linicera nitida. Not nitida. Linicera Bagginson. Yes, it is nitida, and it's Bagginson's Gold. And it has this lovely yellow colour. Now, its failing is it can look sickly at times like that, but the new growth is beautiful. It trims well, but you must clip it on a regular basis to keep it as a strong shrub, because if it's allowed to come up sparsely like this, it will eventually flop over. But it responds very well to being cut right back to the ground, and it won't affect it at all. So there you go. That's what I've planted in this area, which is the secret garden. It's now done, as I said, and the only thing I'm going to put in now are ferns, once I get hold of them. But it's looking cracking. I love it. Okay, there you go. I'll talk to you later. Ta-da!